You know the saying, if thine eye offend thee, pluck it out. This one's been annoying me lately.
We're back, we're bad, you're black, I'm mad, is a famous quote from Lethal Weapon 2, but it could also be applied to when the Nick Furies of live action come together. Hello and welcome to another episode of The Damn Right Show. I'm Adam, and today we're looking at Nick Fury, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. from 1998. Yes, on the outside the movie looks like a porn parody of a Marvel film, but no, it's actually a TV movie used as a backdoor, again not a porn, pilot for a Nick Fury or S.H.I.E.L.D. TV program. S.H.I.E.L.D. program, that'll never work for 7 seasons. The youngsters out there, yes, that's a white Nick Fury, and for the oldsters out there, yes, that's friggin' David friggin' Michael Knight friggin' whatever his name from Baywatch was, Hasselhoff. Fans from the MCU may remember that the Hoff had a cameo in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, but that wasn't his first foray into the world of Marvel. Oh no, it was here, in 1998, on Fox. An interesting note is that this was actually written by David S. Goyer, who has a lot of comic book on-screen experience, whether it was for his writing credits on Blade, the Dark Knight trilogy, Constantine, the show, and Krypton. This makes sense why there's actually a collection of actual Marvel characters in the movie, although not really big-time Marvel characters and not exactly the way they were in comics, and not in the way that you would want to see future versions of Marvel projects show them. Yes, like the Dolph Lundgren Punisher, Captain America, Fantastic Four and Doctor Strange, this was a part of the stalled franchises that companies didn't invest too heavily in the early days, and were lucky if they got released, if they did. In fact, these types of projects went so far as to lower the stock of the characters to the point where we ended in the position where we are today, where different companies bidded for characters that actually seemed like they were worth a damn. So first off, if you plan on watching this, don't expect any headline Marvel characters. You will not find them. Although Lisa Rinna from The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, yes, you heard that right, has a character that acts, I use that term lightly, and dresses similar to Black Widow, but is playing a character, Val Fontaine, who is in fact a character in her own right. The first thing that I want to point out about this movie is the opening visuals of Nick Fury, who is in a self-imposed exile in a forest, but is seen working in a mine, and he isn't doing a very good job. I mean, look at that, he's barely scratching it. He's going to be there forever. Presumably, he's just doing this for a hobby? To mention the characters that are introduced to, Andrea Von Strucker, daughter of Baron Von Strucker, who is in an actual Avengers movie. She is overplayed by Sandra Hess, who you might know from Mortal Kombat Annihilation, who played Sonya Blade, and is looking very much like the chilling Sabrina and Renee Paquette. Andrea Von Strucker is here with her twin brother, but he doesn't really do much. But in the comics they were the super-powered team known as Fenris, and this was reflected in the short-lived Fox X-Men show Gifted, which was about the Von Strucker family being good guys running away from mean old normies. If that wasn't complex enough, she goes by the name Viper, and utilises poison lips, not like poison ivy, don't confuse your confusion, but in the comics there is a character called Viper who has been seen in the movie The Wolverine, and is also sometimes known as Madam Hydra, which is the name of a character, Ada, adapted in the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. show. Ada was an LMD, a life model decoy, and lo and behold this movie features LMDs. Quite the tangled web, right? One of the other characters that we're introduced to is Alexander Pierce, who is a British dude that's all bumbly and 90s British. Hang on, I know that name. Why, that's only bloody Robert Redford's character from Captain America Winter Soldier, who had a long-standing history with that version's Nick Fury. What? Alexander Pierce in the comics is meant to be American, but unlike the MCU version, is not actually a double agent for Hydra. Hydra is the main villain group of the movie, and the logo looks weirdly cheap, don't you think? In this, Hydra agents come across as those weird clones from the Stallone Judge Dredd movie. When you think of S.H.I.E.L.D., Fury, Pierce from the movies, your mind might go to the idea of heli-characters. Guess what? They got those too. This movie is a crazy snapshot of the one hand trying its very best and the other hand shrugging with disinterest. The other main notable comic name is Dum Dum Dugan, who doesn't really look or act like Dum Dum Dugan, but here he is, in all of his glory. Oh, and I almost forgot, fucking Arnim Zola is in this movie. No movie has attempted to create the Krang-like TV-faced robot of the comics, and here we just have some old Nazi bloke that needs a ventilator. Oh, and shout out to Ron Canada, who has played as both a judge in Ted 2 and Frasier. Good stuff. The story is about how Fury was the director of S.H.I.E.L.D., then forced out after the Cold War, but now has to come back because Andrea Von Strucker has stolen the body of her father Wolfgang Von Strucker and killed his best bud. She plans to harvest the Nazi Death's Head virus from his DNA and infect Manhattan with it, even if she does get her Dr. Evil ransom money. There is a Marvel character called Death's Head, but the article was too long to read, so I didn't. And there is also a character in the Wolfenstein Nazi alternate history franchise, I guess unrelated to. Oh, and there's a character that has an ESP implant, and she is all but useless, and she can't act so good. The most impressive thing about the movie is both the Hoff himself and Nick Fury's dialogue. Please don't mistake me, I do not mean all the dialogue, just Hasselhoff's.
Of course I am.
I danced on your poisonous father's grave. I'll dance on your grave too, sweetness.
He's actually pretty funny in this movie, and comes across very much like you'd expect the Nick Fury of that era. A disgruntled, dishevelled, cigar-chomping one-line machine. He's basically Duke Nukem if he chilled out after a while. The problem is everything else. The story is so contrived, pulling a guy out of exiled retirement because someone from his past that was put on ice. That's right. This is the same premise as Demolition Man. Wolfgang von Strucker does Thor, get it because it's Marvel and stuff, Thor out at the end of the movie, leading to whatever sequel or TV show they hope would come out of this, but he is definitely no Simon Phoenix. The writing is very bland and doesn't give much in the way of personality. Normally I would say that the script puts the performers at the disadvantage of whether it was them that is bad or if it's the writing, but in this it's definitely both. Like Marvel projects of the time, this does not hint at a larger Marvel universe, but weirdly acts like the exploits of Nick Fury and his Howling Commandos, though not named as such, were that of legend. Almost like we're supposed to know who or what they are. This could be a hint at the comic book history of Nick Fury, but then again, Nick Fury was never an A-list character, even though he had plenty of his own titles, but is often known for his supporting roles. Hasselhoff was the perfect casting choice for the character in this iteration of Nick Fury, who was not black until the Ultimate comic run, which was based on Samuel L. Jackson, who would later play as him as a sort of self-fulfilling prophecy. And it's hard to judge this by modern standards similar to video game movies at the time. Comic book movies were in flux. There was no real pattern or template to follow, where most would draw from Tim Burton's Batman, like Spawn, The Crow, The Shadow. This lent more to the silly fun, where you had the Schumacher Batman or The Phantom, and history has judged those choices appropriately. The movie was one of the largest TV budgets at the time with $6 million. Interestingly, in reaction to the Samuel L. Jackson getting cast in the role in May 2012 with Movie Line, Hasselhoff said, "I love Sam Jackson, but you know, my Nick Fury was organic. Nick Fury that was written and discussed with Stan Lee before anyone got in there to change it. Nick Fury was written to be tongue-in-cheek and had a cigar in his mouth. He was a tough guy. He was cool. Stan Lee said, 'You're the ultimate Nick Fury.' Avi Arad, can't do an impression because I don't know what he sounds like, when they bought it, said, 'Don't worry, you're going to be Nick Fury forever.' And they lied." Of course, having read that, you can't really tell if he was being sarcastic or if he is actually hurt with the idea that he is no longer the forever Nick Fury. So, if silly fun is your game, Nick Fury is the name. Sound off in the comments what you think of this whole thing, and I'll see you in the next video.